Comment?
Thank you, President Waldron. Just a quick question for Mr. Alcall. On page 4, number 8, the Linden Center Sts conversion, which is then on page 4 in the back with the summary talking about it. So I know this is kind of pushed looking in the out years and everything like that. I know a lot of people would be happy to hear that the city's looking at that. Just looking at 2024, it's 7.2 million that I believe is kind of earmarked by PennDOT.
Yeah, it's on PennDOT, it's on the tip, on the mid-range plan.
I guess
That's why we placed it in this way on this 5-year plan.
I guess my question, so is it scheduled for 2024 then for PennDOT, or is it in any particular?
Actually, I think it's, I forget the exact year, I think it was actually 2026, but our plan only goes out 5 years. And as you know, this is a plan that we revisit every year. So you'll see that, of course, unless something happens where the project is moved up, that's always a possibility. Right now, it's on PennDOT's mid-range, and I think that puts it in 2026 to 2032, somewhere in that.
And I guess my question is simply, is there any guarantee that it would come from PennDOT in that time frame, or could it be pushed back as we've seen with other things over the years? You know, PennDOT always has to change their allocations and schedule and things like that. Is it something that for sure we're going to see within that timeline from PennDOT, or is there potential for it to be kicked further down?
Given where it fell on the plan, there's probably a very good possibility if we keep pursuing it, that it'll be funded in that time frame, should we continue to pursue it. So I would say it's high probability that it will happen in that time frame, which is some time from now. Yeah.
Understood. And then just a quick question for conversion going from, because right now obviously they're both one way, going to north-south traffic. I know in conversations I've had with people, and I'm sure others on council have heard the same, they feel that people that drive too fast on the roads and other things what's the benefit of having, so for obviously, and it's noted in the summary, for traffic control, was there ever any thought to leaving them one way to continue helping with the flow of traffic? Or is I guess, does the benefit of reverting them back to opposite directions of travel and reducing speed and things like that, is it more favorable to have them, you know, north-south lanes as opposed to one-way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-way pair essentially is how they were designed. And honestly, they were designed way back in the heyday of steel, when there was a lot of traffic that needed to efficiently be coming into the city and leaving the city. And on that side of the city, that's really the main avenue for that, and that's why they were designed that way, and they've been that way since. The biggest argument is there's some economic benefits to converting them, to businesses to convert them back to two-way, both of them or one of them. And it would be, quote unquote, somewhat of a, or could be considered somewhat of a traffic calming effect. Obviously, there's higher likelihood of speeding if it's one way and you have 2 lanes, and drivers would feel more comfortable going faster rather than if it's two-way going through a business district with a lot of activity going on.
Understood. We have a lot of years before we have to have more serious conversations about this, so I appreciate it.
And we placed it based on the way it's planned now, and we'll have further discussion whether it moves up in the process. If there's a compelling case to move it up, move one of the conversions, we'll be talking about that in the coming years.
Understood. And then just another quick question I have regarding facilities. The City Emergency Services Facility, is that the formal name for at Stefco and Broad? Or where is the City Emergency Services?
This is going to be a new building to house some of the equipment for emergency services.
And where would that be located?
I believe off of Dewberry, right?
No, that's an extension to the existing Lincoln Firehouse on Easton Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So on the back, if you know that parcel, there's enough grass and trees back there, they wanted to attach it there. To offer some storage as well as maybe some training upstairs, classroom space.
Understood. Thank you.
Just, if I may, just a quick point on the two-way conversion. That's also been a recommendation of Northside 2027 to look at Linden and Center Street going two ways.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Reynolds?
To add on to that idea, thank you, Mr. Walton, I apologize, is that I saw in the narrative part that that Mr. Alcall or Mr. Evans had put that the 2020 approximate cost of Linden Street alone, the number $1 million was in there. And I think that's worth mentioning because I understand why they were put in one way together, but in all of the Northside 2027 meetings, there's a very different conversation. There's more traffic on Center Street than there is on Linden Street. So the idea of turning that into two-way would be a little bit trickier as far as how are you going to move traffic through that part of town. And then Linden Street, where we had just spent a lot of money on Friendship Park, and it's much closer to Thomas Jefferson Elementary School than is any other school on the other side of Center Street. And there's also more, as Mr. Alcall said, there's a lot more commercial development on Linden Street. You have it as one of the main areas, and obviously Center Street's right behind it as well, but you have the commercial development there that starts at Fairview, I guess it is, and not only has the one-way on Linden lowered, I would say, the potential for investment on Linden Street, but also, as we said, it's led to a lot of different issues all the way down to, we've had people show up to talk about the speed that cars come through on Linden between Market and Linden, all the way down there. And then also, I mean, we're voting tonight on a Northside 2027 pedestrian safety grant for around the corner there on Broad Street. So as far as the priorities go, I think that portion of Linden Street starting at Fairview and going all the way down to Church is much higher, it's much cheaper. I think Center Street has recently been repaved in the last couple of years, Mr. Alcall, is that correct?
Yes.
And to get back to that last point, that someone, I think Mr. Donchis had talked about, is like, it's come up over and over and over again at these Northside 2027 meetings about how that one-way street on Linden Street, much more than Center, just kind of cuts that neighborhood there. And, I think it's worth noting that it's, that portion of it in 2020 is only $1 million. Two small things here is, one is, Mr. Evans, on for the first on the financial page here, for the estimate of the bond